Welcome everyone to the DC Beer Show. We are at DC Beer across social media. Mike Stein, what's in your Stein this evening?
Well, hey Jake, I'm having Marlene Original Berliner Weisse by Schneeule, Berlin's famous brewery. Very excited to see them again at Snallygaster this year, broadening our beer perspective all the way up to North Germany in Berlin. Brandy, what are you having?
Hi, Mr. Stein and Jake, my fave fellas. I drank a Born Bohemian, which, as you know, is one of Denizens' flagship beers. It's a Pilsner, lager Pilsner with Satz hops. It's very refreshing, very lovely. And then I was so happy to learn as I was going through my shrank German word, full of beer, that I had a couple of cans of Dynasty's 838 Stout hiding back there. So that is what I just finished. Yes. Love this stout. Love you, Fabio. Love you, Dynasty. So that's what I drank tonight. Jake, what's up?
I've got here one of the hypiest craft lagers from west of Mississippi. It is a Montucky cold snack. People in the beer biz have been big upping this brand for quite some time now. I would say it's got kind of that like banana bubblegum, Coors-y yeast, but it's a little bit moreish than Coors Banquet. Would I illegally transport it across many states like Smokey and the Bandit? I don't know, but like, could you drink 3 of them? Yeah, you absolutely could, even on a weekday when we podcast. All right. Before we get into our action-packed, super cool guest, I believe it's Streetcar 82's 6th anniversary coming up this weekend, and we've got a beer share at City State where they'll be pouring their take on 3 Stars Peppercorn Saison on Sunday the 8th. You should be there. RSVP, you know where.
What else is happening at that beer share, guys?
It's a big one. Fill us in, Brandy.
So to be honest, it was kind of random and kind of exciting. So the representative from Lionsgate Films reached out to DC Beer and asked if they could come to our beer share. And I'm like, oh, you guys like beer? I love that. But they're coming to promote their new movie, The Killer's Game. And they're coming giving out swag, movie tickets. And I think everyone's getting really jazzed about it. So that's kind of cool. It's going to be a very unique beer share, but we're going to have the most amazing fun and get some cool movie swag from it. So I'm jazzed about it. And we get Peppercorn Saison, which is crazy. Who thought that was going to come back? Not me. But here we are, and I'm kind of excited about it. And by kind of, I mean very, because I probably still have this original 3 Stars poster of Peppercorn Saison hanging in my basement.
I did not have Peppercorn Saison returns in 2024 on my 2024 DC Beer Bingo card, but here we are.
Speaking of brewery swag, a good place to go and get brewery swag is a festival on Pennsylvania Avenue, where there are over 170 breweries pouring. That festival is Snallygaster, and we've got Greg Engert of Neighborhood Restaurant Group, and of course Church Key, Blue Jacket, The Sovereign, and many others on the show. Welcome back to the show, NRG Managing Partner and Beverage Director, Greg Engert. Greg, what are you drinking this evening?
It's funny you should ask. I'm actually drinking Hill House, which is our annual Oktoberfest style beer that we make at Blue Jacket. It's not even on the shelves yet, but I was able to grab a pre-release can. It's tasting great.
Very nice, very nice. Are we going to see any gravity kegs of that around Blue Jacket? Perhaps at Oktoberfest coming up?
Yeah, exactly. At our Oktoberfest, I think we're going to have like 8 or 10 different gravity kegs of different German-style beers. So Hill House, Patterned Skies, Self-Portrait for the company. Yeah, we typically try to get everything into gravity keg for our Oktoberfest event, which is awesome. And not to jump any additional questions you may have, but this is also the year that we're going to finally see the return of some Franconian gravity kegs from Franconia, obviously, showing up. So not for Oktoberfest, but for Snallygaster and other appearances. That should be pretty fun.
That is excellent news. I know that we talked about this last year, and much of the discussion was focused on the pandemic and
Yeah.
supply chains and the like. Is that getting somewhat better? It's clearing up?
I wish I could say yes. I mean, it probably is. But honestly, what happened was Sebastian Sauer, who I think all of y'all know very well from Freigeist, he is one of my best friends and is a mover and shaker in the German beer industry. So he brings in a ton of beer from like Belgium, and it's he's like kind of an importer over there, and he moves a lot of beer around. So he knows all the major players in Franconia, and he was basically like, I can just make this happen for you. And so he did Via Line Ventures, which, they kind of took over for Shelton Brothers and started to help us get the kegs on the water. And they're on the water now. They're coming over. We're getting beers from Eichhorn, Will, and most excitingly, I think for me, Knobloch, which is one of my favorite Franconian lager producers. So, and we've never had their beers in gravity kegs before. So very exciting. I think we're going to pour some at maybe an event before Snally, but then we're going to save some for Snally as well. So yes, that is all back for you this year, Jake.
Yeah, thank you, thank you. The people love to see it. And by people, I mean me walking around drinking sub 5.5%, just like 11 Plato Central European lager is, for that Snallygaster, it's like hot dogs and mustard.
Sure.
Just goes well together.
I'm looking forward to the swag this year. I'm wearing my Snallygaster hoodie, one of my Snallygaster hoodies. So I'm all about the color, and I see that there's been so many colors incorporated to this year's theme and last year's very 80s, 90s vibes. So I'm curious to see the swag this year because I'll probably, Obvi, get a Snally thing.
You know what, Brandy, I'm so glad you brought that up. It's funny, like that's something that we don't talk a lot about, and yet we spend a disproportionate amount of time on. All the swag that we do at Snally is like, it takes us months, like back and forth, even just to your point, like coming up with like the theme for the year. This year was very like early 80s. I think I went to them and I was like, let's do like MTV 1984. And our design team is incredible. Chris Mullins and Tony LaFalce, they were like, yep, got it. And as you know, like when you work with like marketing teams and designers, if you can come up with something that they're interested in, it's going to be amazing. And I think that's kind of what we're always looking for every year. It's like, we have a lot of cool ideas, but if you can find something that they're pumped about like this, they just jump all in. And so we have some really cool swag coming out, and these guys put in so much work. It's really cool every year to see it happen.
I can't wait to see it. Are there going to be Snally themed umbrellas? Because,
Don't say it. How dare you say that?
Hey, you know what? Wait, no, we're going to talk about this. This is a sore subject, but
it is
what do the Snally gods have in store for us? Because Greg, let me tell you, I've been going to Snally since the days of Union Market parking lot.
Yeah.
All right. There have been many, 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 many rainy days, Snallies. There have been many sunny, beautiful Snally days. Yeah. Honestly, it hasn't affected my happiness at Snally. I had a happy Snally time no matter what the weather. But I'm just curious, like, if people are like betting, like this would be the thing to bet on. This would be the beer nerd thing to gamble on.
I can tell you right, it's so funny you're bringing this up, and I think it's really something interesting to talk about. So we just sold out VIP today, actually, which is a little later than last year, but it's right on target for the previous year, right? So I think, to your point, Brandy, like we didn't obviously host Snally in 2020. In 2021, we came back with a bang. It was amazing. Beautiful weather. 2022, beautiful weather.
Yes.
23, ticket sales were nuts because of those 2 years of beautiful weather. And now it's slowed a bit because I think people are waiting, which totally makes sense to me. But it's funny. Even like yesterday, when the weather cooled a little bit, and kids are back to school, summer seems to be over, we're moving into fall, post Labor Day, our ticket sales just start skyrocketing. So if it remains looking good in 2 weeks out, we have a nice weather forecast. It's going to be bananas. If not, we'll see what happens. But also to your point, it's fun either way. You know what I mean?
It is.
And I'll tell you, this is a really cool statistic. We track all of the entrances, and last year we were like, it's raining. We sold out, 8,000 people, and it was like, I wonder how many people are going to come. I think we had a 98.3% entrance rate, which was actually higher than 2022, even though it rained. So that's the cool thing about Snally. It's like when people they buy their tickets ahead of time, they come.
Yeah.
They're coming either way. You know what I mean?
So I think one of the things that folks like to talk about a lot is some of the changes in terms of the breweries that happen year in, year out at Snally. And then, we had this conversation last year about how do you keep this fresh and keep it moving. Who are some of the new breweries this year, even if they took like a year or two off, who you're excited to have or have back?
Typically, we like to rotate in about 10 to 15%, I think, at this point of new brewers, just to, like you said, to keep it fresh. And honestly, a bunch of brewers can't make it or decline for other reasons. We could talk about that as well. So, this year, I think we're excited. We have a lot of brewers returning, but we're really excited to have Heater Allen on hand and actually coming to town, which is very cool. Clag out of Sandusky, Ohio. It's a really fun brewery that's going to be great. Messerem from Montreal, they're awesome and coming. And, some breweries like Blogy from Hainaut province, Belgium, right on smack on the border, they're sending beer, but they're also coming. So Pierre Alex is coming, which is really cool as well. So those are some of the ones. And obviously I already mentioned those German brewers that we're going to have in Gravity Keg, which is super cool. So there's a bunch of really cool new ones.
I'm super excited to see Lisa Allen or whomever from Heater Allen.
Yeah, she's coming, I think. Yeah.
That's incredible. And it's a great opportunity to showcase hometown talent for DC brewers. Obviously, Ro Gunzel's work at Blue Jacket is worth showcasing, as well as some other locals. I'm wondering who said they were unable to come. And if you don't want to name names, who would be a dream get for you?
Yeah. Well, I think, GABF, as long as that's going to continue to go on, I don't know. Seems like it's changing every year. So it's hard to know exactly how it's going to continue to be. But they're back on this weekend, every year now. It's just 2 years in a row. I thought they were the first weekend before, but now they're on this weekend. So, Bierstadt is sending beer, but they're not coming. Whereas they would have absolutely come in the past. We're not getting Cohesion this year or Cerebral based on that. So that's unfortunate. So I can say that, that's one part of it. And then some other ones, I think probably one of the most notable ones that geeks will notice is that Floodland is not coming after coming for 3 or 4 years in a row. I think they're just clamping down on travel. They're a small brewery, so unfortunately they're not going to be around this year. But I'll say in general, Tim Liu, our beer director, Bruno Simoes, our assistant beer director, they do a lot more traveling and appearances at Fest than I do at this point. And they really can take credit for Snallygaster more than I can at this point. I mean, they're absolutely incredible humans and phenomenal people to work with, and they have an engine that I've not seen. They crush it every year. I think as they've been going around to other fests, they've noticed that not as many people are traveling, which, not to be, to dwell on the issues or just, I wouldn't even say issues, but craft beer is just kind of getting back to where it once was. A lot of people talk about craft beer is it's dead or it's hurting. It's still a lot better than it was when I got started 20 years ago. I'll tell you that. So, it's slowed down. It's probably slowing down to a reasonable pace. But what reasonable means is that a lot of these brewers can't just travel to festivals like they used to. So I think because of that, we're seeing a little bit of a slowdown. All of that said, we're seeing more international brewers. I mean, I mentioned Blogy is like, yeah, we'll come. And the guys from Track out of Manchester are coming. So it's like, it's a weird time in craft. I mean, we can't say that enough on, in general, when we see each other, but on this podcast too. It's like, it's strange, right? Some of these domestic brewers might not travel, but the international brewers are looking for reasons to travel. So we're kind of making up for one with the other. And it always seems to come together and be amazing, no matter what, which is cool. So.
Yeah, it's really weird living in the future. And
exactly.
and what I mean by that is not too long ago, Sebastian Sauer was at Shelter in the Roost and doing Kolsch service. And I was like, oh, I can't make it Sunday. Can I, are you gone? You'll probably be gone by the time I can free up on Monday. He said, no, I'm here. So we went and hung out. We had some beers. But it was wonderful to see him just be like, yeah, we did Kolsch service on a Sunday. It was wonderful. This is as it should be. And I was like, oh, cool. Are you going to go do that? And he was going to hit some more American cities. But it was funny to hear him get some inside baseball talk about like, oh, we should do Kolsch service now. And then next month, September, October, November. And he was like, you don't need a reason. We just do Kolsch service. Anytime I'm in Cologne, we just do Kolsch service. That's what happens. And it was so wonderful to see his tall, beautiful German self in DC and just having a great time and drinking in the beer culture. And I remember like 10 years ago meeting him at Church Key on a random, I don't know if it was a Monday, Tuesday, or Wednesday, but the same concept. And to echo your point, Greg, massive, massive congrats to you, Bruno, Tim, the team for having incredible, one Sunday you're
Bruno
there
and
and
Tim.
it's Freigeist. Yeah, another Sunday it's Halfway Crooks, and another Sunday it's Bierstadt Lagerhaus. Like the continual churn of quality events is amazing. It's wild to think
you said like 10 years ago. I think so what you're getting at is that like when Sebastian came to town, he wasn't doing Kolsch service. Like he was like pumping out historic German beer styles, and crazy weird beers that like people were flocking to then and nobody would drink now. It's like living in the future, living in the past. What is past is prologue. It's so cool to see this all evolve. And when people try to talk about like the death of craft beer and stuff, it's like it's so clearly not, because things are still in motion, and that's what's right. And like we were talking about, like Jake was saying, we have gravity kegs coming back to Snally for the first time since pre-pandemic. That sounds good to me. You know what I mean? Like,
nature is healing. That's what we want to hear.
Yeah.
By the way, I take great offense to the obscure German beer styles dig, because I had a Lichtenheiner in Baltimore last month. So
you were the first
yes.
and last person to have that beer probably there.
Yes, and it was not even a Sebastian Sauer beer. It was a Mike Earl beer. Shout out to Mike Earl over at Silver Branch, who's got a Ralph beer on it, Diamondback, right now.
If we're going to live in the present but reminisce about the past, what about our Brewers Brunch? Because that used to be my favorite. Mallard. Are we doing a Brewers Brunch at Mallard?
So here's the thing. For me to ask, we mentioned Bruno and Tim, but I mean, so many other people to kind of like buck up on Sunday after this whole shit, all these shenanigans is like pretty difficult. That's why we've held off from doing it in the past. I mean, most brewers start to come to town on Thursday. We do some fun stuff all week, and then Thursday it starts, Friday it's big, Saturday it's big, Saturday after party. You guys have all been there. Sunday, everybody kind of like dies for the day, So I can pretty much say that there's no way we'll do a Brewers Brunch. However, 2 weeks after Snally, we have Church Key's 15th anniversary event. So I think that's going to be on the 26th. We haven't announced it yet, but we're going to be showcasing a bunch of really cool 15th anniversary beers that people have been brewing for us and with us. Schilling, Sierra Nevada, Oxbow, The Vale, Monkish, all that stuff is coming out. And we're going to have a big party, a blowout at Church Key on the 26th. So maybe I should be talking to these guys about some kind of brunch for that if the brewers are in town. So
yeah, that's a good idea.
So you mentioned brewers getting in for Snally on Thursday. Are any of them going to go to Blue Jacket and perhaps do any collaboration beers with Blue Jacket at Blue Jacket
I can say yes, but we're still trying to figure that out. It's hard because it's a balance of schedules, and Ro Gunzel, you mentioned before, our director of brewing ops, his team, Colin and Tim, like it's crazy busy. Like we're kind of coming into fall, so we're taking off. We're packaging a bunch of beer for Blue Jack or for Snally. But we typically do at least 1 to 2 collabs, and we're working on those now. So we are. I can't say definitively what we're doing, but we're trying to like pin it down. And we always brew, 2 collabs, like Thursday, Friday, like you said. We'll do two beers that will come out after.
You mentioned Blaujies, and you also mentioned Track. I noticed a few more Brits coming this year, not just Track, but also Cloudwater, More, and the return of, we're all OG beer geeks here, Ridgeway, who, I've been drinking Ridgeway since like the, I don't know, mid to late 90s. Santa's Butt, all of the very bad elf series. Do you think they'll be bringing any real ale? Will we see some casks, some firkins?
Yeah, we're talking about that right now. I think possibly. I'm so glad that y'all noticed that. Like that's the thing personality. I think sometimes when we have to pour less of the hundreds of local brewers that there are, obviously we only do 175 brewers, so not everybody can be involved. A lot of times we're making way for international brewers, right? Because we believe rightfully that they do things differently and they can show us things that we can't get from brewers locally. Not that they're better or worse, but it's just fun to have different perspectives, different flavors, things like that. So yeah, Ridgeway, Cloudwater, More Beer, Justin, Hawk, really close buddy of mine, will be in town for this. But all of that said, I'm not sure if we're going to do firkins, just because we all know that an hour or two in, even with like a blanket on it, it's not necessarily the best way to showcase their beers. And so if they're coming all the way over from the UK, we're probably going to serve stuff in, Patener and Key Keg. That said, most of these guys are putting the beers in the kegs, naturally carbonated, like they're filling firkins anyways. So like, unfiltered, unpasteurized, naturally carbonated. So it's close enough, but the pomp and circumstance, probably not as much. When we do the gravity kegs from Germany, it's just those things are like, they're airtight. They make a lot more sense for a fest, and they tend to be smaller. We don't typically get pins from the UK. So when we get 13 gallons of firkin beer, it's like the first 5 gallons are going to be amazing. The rest because you guys remember, we used to do that at Snally all the time. And by the end, it wasn't the best way to showcase the beer. So,
suggestion here, you can do Firkin Friday as the Friday pre-Snally event with all of the brewers.
We do that.
Stuff.
We do that every Friday, every Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday at Shelter, Church Key, and Blue Jacket. Anyways, that's what I'll say is like, if you don't get firkins of Ridgeway, IPA, ESB at Snally, we'll have it at Church Key that weekend. You know what I mean? So like, that's cool at least.
I was going to say real quick, thank you for acknowledging the local brewers, because, we are on the receiving end of a lot of comments, and we always say, Snally, Greg has the opportunity, because of his connections and his long time in the industry, to bring in all of these breweries that we don't tend to get to have. And, I do appreciate you acknowledging the local breweries who may feel left out. I don't think it's anything personal.
Oh, it's absolutely not anything personal. It's a horrible position to be in. Can you imagine? Like it's hard. We do rotate. Like like Sober Branch is back this year after not being in last year. You know what I mean? Like, so like we do our best to like try to help out our friends. But at the same time, Snallygaster is not a local beer fest, and never is going to be, never should be. And if it comes down to making room for beers like from Franconia you've never had before, of course we have to do that. That's the nature of our fest, and I think most people understand. And I appreciate you guys are really good yeomans for us, and great like people who can spread the word on that. But it's hard. It never feels good But I do think it's cool because we're trying to like rotate people back through. Like I said, like Silver Branch is back this year. We love that brewery. We love those guys. They make amazing beers. So yeah, we're always thinking of it.
I think that's the beauty of Snally. We often forget that, it's a fundraiser for Arcadia Farm, and that is fundamentally doing good. Because outside of that, the beer world is so broad that you have to have Franconian gravity-fed beer, and you have to have Mancusian or Manchesterian or beers from Ridgeway. I had 2 Ridgeway beers today, and it just reminded me how broad the world of beer is. And to your point, Greg, I would much rather have the 2 beers that I had out of bottle, the Imperial Stout and the Export Stout, than I would gallons 6 to 13 out of a cask. Knowing how good gallons 1 through 5 are, it just doesn't make sense, right? And so you have to do the logical thing. And I would also add, Brandy, not to ever have you be, the punching bag for local brewers, or have DC Beer, us, take the blame. But anytime we go back to those brewers and go, but have you had the Georgian Broy, or have you had a Ridgeway Export Stout, or have you had... And if it's in good faith, it's always, yeah, you're right. I would love an export stout from Ridgeway. I would love a Keller beer from Butenheim.
The other thing I would say, guys, which I think is like really important is, and I've written about this for craft beer and brewing, it's like, where are people getting inspiration these days? Or just learning how to make a beer correctly. I think that it's harder and harder to find imported beer anywhere. But when I think of I was just talking to Kelly Young from Velocity Girl, because we're going to brew a beer with him. We're just talking about, if you want to make a dunkel, what's that based on? If you just go to a random brewery and say what's this dunkel based on? I mean, internet technology probably, just like finding stuff, but is it drinking Eyinger Alt-Bayerisch Dunkel or Ondex? You know what I mean? These are the things I wonder about. Or when people start brewing rock beer. Have you had Schlenkerla? Have you had it recently? And again, I'm only saying this because I know for a fact it's harder and harder to find any of these beers today. So it's like, I think Snally is also a great opportunity for people to taste a bunch of stuff that they can't necessarily get all the time. And when you think of I love making lager, well, if you come to Snally and you drink some of these Franconian lagers, it might blow your mind and make you think oh, wow, as a brewer or a home brewer or just a festival goer, wow, how do I do that? And that used to be easier to do when there was more imports, but there's not as much now. So I think that's cool. And also you go to Snally, whether you're pouring or not, the opportunity to meet and hang out with so many brewers and just interact and talk through ideas for, beer making, but, or just process or ingredient sourcing is incredible. I mean, it's so if we get 250 brewers in DC for a weekend, that's everybody's win, beyond just Arcadia, NRG, Snally. It's an amazing time for everybody to take advantage of.
It's only everybody's win if you actually listen to what Blaugies does and do a proper step mash.
Right.
I will say, in addition to what Greg just said, last year on the Snally stage, I was geeking out the whole time I was on stage because we had a star-studded series of panels, and I was on stage and I was beer geeking out because I'm so happy that I get to talk to these people, and not only do the brewers get to geek out, but it's non-brewers and beer geeks overall just to get to be on in the same area as them. How cool is that? And shoot the shit or drink a beer together. And I just that honestly was the highlight of my entire Snally last year. Not even just the stage, but just having the opportunity to be interviewing these people that I admire and look up to in the beer industry. It's incredible. So
and we're going to do that again. I mean, DC Beer is definitely going to be back running the podcast stage. We're not going to have it as close to a music stage as last time, so you can hear it. We're going to figure it out. But yeah, I mean, it's so cool. And we have some other, Steal This Beer podcasts. They just reached out to me today. They're like, can we come down and work with DC Beer and be on the stage? I'm like, hell yeah. We can come up with so many ways to do this and keep interviewing amazing people. And then you guys kept, releasing these awesome episodes afterwards. I mean, it's cool. I feel like we're really taking advantage of having all these cool personalities in the same place. So thank you for that. And we can't wait to do that again.
Yeah, thank you so much, Greg. And you listeners, take advantage of it too. General admission tickets still available. Again, this is for a good cause. Arcadia Farms. Greg, as always, thank you so much.
This guy's great to see you.
And thank you, Tim and Bruno. We know everyone is out there working hard. We can all sleep with the windows open. We can drink Marzens and Fest beers. And even pumpkin beers, I guess, if that's your thing. It's not for me. But you enjoying it doesn't hurt me in any way. So, fine, I guess. What else you all got going on?
English stout, Jacob. English stout. I got not one but two export stouts from JP at Hop Cask and Barrel. Shout out to JP, manager of Hop Cask and Barrel, for bringing in the Ridgeway goodies. Brandy, what's on your agenda?
Beer-wise or event-wise? Because, my Women's Brew Culture Club, we're doing trivia at other half, the middle end-ish of the month, but come back on that one. I am looking forward to the return of brown ales. I will say someone just gifted me a lovely box of Cigar City's brown ale out of nowhere. I was very excited because they knew my favorite type of beer was brown ale, and they couldn't find any because this is the world that I live in. So they went out and bought a box of Cigar City brown ale. So I'm thoroughly enjoying those. So guys, and women and theys and thems and we's and us, make more brown ales for Brandy. Thank you. I'll see you at Snally.
Hashtag brown ales for Brandy. All right, everybody. We're at DC Beer on the socials. Everybody be well. There's so many events coming up this fall. dcbeer.com/events. And of course, we're on Patreon. You should come visit. See you at the beer share. Tip big and be well, everybody. See you all later.